Where does time begin? Where does the millennium begin?
Oh, you're asking all those existential questions as we go into the new century,
This
Joey.
is not an existentialist question. This is a question that the folks in London along the Thames River are pretty convinced it begins right where they are.
Greenwich Mean Time.
Greenwich Mean Time, just about 12 minutes away now as we move in on midnight in London and at Greenwich.
And we're going to move in on Christian Amanpour, who is there monitoring events, and something going to happen in just the next few minutes. Christian?
Yes, indeed, and according to Britain, time does begin here. Greenwich Mean Time for the more than 100 years has been the standard of universal time on our planet. Every other country just about has its time pegged to Greenwich Mean Time. Now, in a few moments, the official opening of the dome will happen. The Queen will get up and do an opening ceremony supported by 8 children, we understand, and then there will be a series of songs and anthems and performances, aerial acrobatics and the like, until the midnight chimes, and then of course we'll hear from Big Ben further up the river, and then the pyrotechnics start. Britain has billed this celebration as the biggest celebration in the world for the millennium. It has worked really hard to get this Millennium Dome ready on time, and it just about made it. There you can see the Queen sitting with Prince Philip, her consort, and to her other side was the Prime Minister, Tony Blair, and his wife, Cherie Blair. She's getting up now, also the Queen's daughter, known as the Princess Royal. This now marks the official opening of the dome. As you see, there are 8 children who will support her and join in this opening ceremony. The Queen already has been doing a number of things before she got to the dome on her private barge. Just before that, she lit the London beacon, which is part of a whole Millennium beacon, where flames and torches all over the length and breadth of the British Isles have been lit to commemorate the millennium. And before that, she was at prayer at Southwark Cathedral on the river, and she also visited a homeless shelter, part of her observations of this Millennium Eve. There we go. You can see the children have been tugging on the poles that support all this fabric, and that fabric has encircled the main arena and closed it off from the rest of the outer part of the interior of the Millennium Dome. And now you can see all the exhibitions, what they call the zones, around the outside. There are 14 exhibition zones inside the Millennium, which is meant to give visitors a taste of what life and technology and communications and health and education will be like in the next millennium. There have already been anthems and songs and performances. The rock anthem that was chosen to commemorate the millennium inside the dome was All You Need Is Love, the famous song by the Beatles. It's worth remembering perhaps that the Beatles' former lead guitarist George Harrison was attacked at his home yesterday and is said to be recovering in hospital well. As we watch these live pictures, what's happening is that there is a Millennium Resolution called A New Beginning, which is music that has been commissioned specifically for this event. And later there'll be another version of the national anthem, a new version. Frank and Joey?
CNN's Christian Amanpour reporting to us from Greenwich in the Millennium Dome.
And so much more still ahead. We'll be right back.
United Kingdom welcomes a new century and a new millennium in less than 5 minutes. CNN's worldwide coverage of New Year's observances takes you this hour to the United Kingdom, including live reports from several British venues.
In Scotland, they're calling it a change from the age of iron to the age of uncertainty, and they'll celebrate by throwing a half-ton of molten iron into the sea.
From the River Thames to the Millennium Dome, England is staking a claim as the world capital of time. Some serious pyrotechnics in Scotland, where they boast the UK's biggest fireworks display.
And the island of glaciers and geysers, Iceland, springs into a new era as CNN's coverage of Millennium 2000 continues right now.
CNN's coverage this hour begins at Greenwich under the biggest dome in all the world. This is it, the Millennium Dome, created especially for this particular occasion, as well as sitting right along the Thames River, where the celebration continues. Many of the folks from London gathered along the river's banks.
In just about 3.5 minutes, they will ring out the old century in the United Kingdom, a century that has seen enormous change in this country. There, a picture of Big Ben, you'll be hearing that. A century that's seen the Great War and the Empire dominant and then diminished, the Blitz and the Beatles, the Troubles in Northern Ireland, and now hopes for peace in Northern Ireland. Amazing change there as elsewhere.
With just about 3 minutes to midnight in London, CNN's Christian Amanpour, who's outside the Millennium Dome, joins us now. Christian, what do you see there? The great excitement building, I suppose.
Well, you can see from the pictures all over England and London that the excitement is building. There have been millions of people now, we're told, are down by the river in London and also all over England. You mentioned Scotland earlier. Scotland is traditionally the home of one of the best New Year's Eve parties in the world, and they are determined to have a great party this year as well, and also in Wales and Northern Ireland and all over the British Isles. The end of this millennium comes at a time when British Isles has more devolved government than any time in its history. Scotland and Wales have got more and more autonomous and more independence from the central government here. And in Northern Ireland, it's a particularly poignant time because they managed to scrape by at the end of this century with a peace deal that will hopefully put them into the 21st century on a different footing after 30 years of what they euphemistically called in Northern Ireland the Troubles. Now, Britain, the British Isles, considers itself the standard of world time, of universal time. We've been talking a lot throughout this day about how Greenwich Mean Time was chosen. The Greenwich Meridian goes right through Britain, France, North Africa, and all the way down to the Antarctic. It essentially joins the North to the South Pole. And people who are different nationalities, different religions, different cultures are all set to the same time and are all celebrating at this precise moment. As we get closer, people will start the countdown. We're looking right now at Trafalgar Square, traditionally the British party zone on New Year's Eve. They were going to freeze Trafalgar Square and make it into a giant skating rink for the evening, but that proved too difficult and too expensive. Nonetheless, you can see that people are crowding into Trafalgar Square, as they also are along the banks of the river. Great street parties have been held in London along the banks of the River Thames, and the people there obviously hope that their patience will pay off, because this is the site of what has been billed as the greatest pyrotechnics of the world's Millennium celebrations. There will be what is known as a river of fire, the illusion of a fire wall racing up the Thames at the speed of sound. There will also be a 15-minute Millennium spectacular fireworks. Let's listen as we head into the countdown.
think it's midnight in London.
I think they have made the point. If you had any doubt that this is the longest and largest fireworks demonstration you have ever seen, let us assure you that this, in fact, is the case. In fact, they claim that this is such an elaborate demonstration of the pyrotechnic power of the British that you would be able to see this from space if you had been in space to watch all this. It's 39 tons of fireworks, all operated by remote control, and you could see on the River Thames. They put them out on the barges for safety and then lit them by remote control. So this has gone on 15 plus minutes.
There were 16 barges up and down the Thames and a light show, as you can still see remnants of that. And I actually believe that you might have been able to see this from space.
I think I can understand that. Also want to note here that you did see earlier, a few minutes ago in our coverage, some pictures of the inside of Big Ben. I just want to note that because this is the first time ever that the authorities have allowed a camera to be placed inside this important clock, inside Big Ben, so that we were able to see the chimes.
And we're going to go to Christian in just a moment. One serious note, though now, it is now 17 minutes past midnight there, as you see on Big Ben. It's also 17 minutes past midnight Greenwich Mean Time. Now, this is important, and we're going to be telling you some more about this in the minutes ahead, because of all those embedded computer chips around the world, global positioning systems here in the United States, the Weather Service, NASA, the positioning that deals with airline safety and navigation, all of these are tied to
what Greenwich
exactly to Greenwich Mean Time. If there were to be a problem, we would start to see it and hear about it, so we'll be listening very closely for that. 2000 in London. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to all. And Happy New Year to CNN's Christiane Amanpour, who is at Greenwich at the Millennium Dome. If she can still hear us after all those pyrotechnics. Christiane, are you there?
Absolutely. It's hard to hear. I don't even know what exactly we are hearing. The continued roar, it sounds of fireworks and things going off. We heard gun salutes. We heard a special anthem where people were singing and music scores to these fireworks. And we saw the incredulous, fascinated looks of the people as the cameras cut away to them as they were watching this unbelievable display of fireworks.
Okay.
The British promised that it was going to be the biggest and the longest and the best, and it appears that certainly it was the longest. It's a little misty, so I'm not sure how clearly it came across on television, but from here it was unbelievable. And it's not just down near the Big Ben and the Tower Bridge and Vauxhall Bridge, but also all down the river. We saw it. We saw the fireworks over the dome here, and inside the dome at the same time we saw the acrobatics and the dancing and the music and the aerial ballets, and we also saw the fairly hilarious spectacle of the Prime Minister and Prince Philip grabbing the Queen's hands and joining hands and pumping hands as they all sang the traditional Auld Lang Syne. Now we're inside the dome again. We're continuing to watch the musical performances. We're meant to, and maybe this is the new version of the national anthem. Everybody's standing. Let's listen. There is meant to be a new arrangement by British composer Jonathan Dove of the national anthem of God Save the Queen sometime as this celebration inside the dome wraps up. But it is extraordinary as we watch now the Millennium, according to the British, officially take place, since Greenwich Mean Time has now made the midnight hour. It is extraordinary to think that over the past 24 hours, we've watched for the first time in the history of our planet, all peoples of the world, different nationalities, different cultures, different religions, celebrate the same event. Joey, Frank?
Christiane, I do think that we did see the singer Ruby Jones singing the new version, the modified version of God Save the Queen. There, you might have had trouble hearing it with all the noise where you are, Christiane. CNN's Chris Burns is also on hand on the River Thames in the crowd. And Chris, I'm sure the bubbly and the excitement has flowed through that crowd around you.
Well, certainly this performance, this heavenly performance, really just blew everybody away here. With each volley, there were people who were cheering and screaming. It's quite amazing. 40,000 different projectiles who were shot up over 15 minutes I was constantly looking for this river of fire that they were talking about. I guess you could take that with a bit of poetic license, but it truly was a mind blower. I've never seen a firework display like that. And of course, this tops off an incredible day where London inaugurated, Prime Minister Tony Blair inaugurated the new wheel, the new Ferris wheel here, the London Eye, a 450-foot wheel, about 40 stories tall, that will be, after a couple of glitches are fixed, will be operational sometime later this month. And earlier in the day, there were beacons that were lit, especially the largest one by Queen Elizabeth II on her way to the Dome. And as we see now, the people are still reveling. The party goes on. There are 50 different bands that are playing over 12 hours right into the new millennium in 4 different sites up and down this 4-mile stretch of the Thames, where officials here are telling me that this is the biggest celebration on the Thames since VE Day, that being more than 50 years ago, the end of World War II. It's quite an amazing spirit here, all along the Thames as well as on the Thames itself, in a number of party boats that are plying the river up and down, that were watching the fireworks just as we were. It was quite an amazing sight, and as I say, it does continue. There's no idea how long these people are going to be staying here, but it truly is packed. Police had been blocking off some side roads, side streets, to prevent people from being crushed along the river. It was so incredibly crowded. I tried to walk around, and it was quite a struggle. So these people are quite a lot of brave people here, and they really, it was certainly worth the wait and worth the toil to get here, because this was the most amazing fireworks display that certainly I have ever seen in my life.
Chris Burns for us on the River Thames, in amongst the crowd. So much for the reserve of the English.
And the party continues. Our coverage will continue. When we come back, we're going to take you around the world with some more reports. We're going to tell you some else, what's been happening very briefly today. Tell you so far so good on the Y2K watch.
Right, now, of course, as Frank noted earlier, the Greenwich Mean Time, the all-important standard of time, the important standard of time for computers through the world, through all sorts of devices, officialdom through the world, and in this country, watching very closely to see what's happened now that it's 24 minutes after midnight Greenwich Mean Time.
And we'll be back.
A lot of news to cover as well this hour that we've lost a little bit in the coverage of the Millennium events, but we don't want our audience to miss that.
That's right. We're going to take you to the Federal Aviation Administration shortly and tell you what is going on there. But first, let us give you a couple of other stories. More than 3 hours after Moscow rang in the year 2000, Russia appears to be making a smooth transition to the new millennium and to new leadership in the Kremlin. In a televised New Year's Eve address, President Boris Yeltsin surprised the nation by announcing his resignation. He said he was stepping down early because he wanted Russia to enter the new millennium with new leaders and new energy, and he denied his health problems were behind the decision. Now, Mr. Yeltsin handed over power to his chosen successor, Prime Minister Vladimir Putin. He's now acting president, a move expected to strengthen Mr. Putin's advantage in Russia's presidential elections, now scheduled for March 26th. Now, as Mr. Yeltsin left the Kremlin, Mr. Putin granted him immunity from prosecution, a lifetime security detail, and a pension, and he praised his leadership.
As he made his decision on handover of power, the president acted in complete compliance with Russia's constitution. To evaluate to a full extent how much this person has done for Russia we will be able only sometime later. But already today it is clear that Russia has gone along the road of democracy and reforms and has been able to assert itself as an independent state, and this goes to his credit.
And while the world was digesting all of this, and Russians are digesting it, many world leaders were quick to credit Mr. Yeltsin with steering Russia toward a democracy and a free market economy during his 8 tumultuous years in office. President Clinton said Mr. Yeltsin's efforts in the dismantling of Russia's communist system are his, quoting here, lasting achievement.
Another major developing story on this day, the Indian Air hostage crisis is now over, but the United States says it wants justice done to the team of hijackers. The 5 Muslim militants fled in a bus under a 10-hour deadline set by Afghanistan's Taliban militia to leave the country. That deadline appears to have passed, with the hijackers' whereabouts now unknown. Also on that bus, 3 Muslim militants were freed by the Indian government in exchange for the 155 hostages from the plane, and a Taliban member who was included as a shield against the group's possible capture. As for the freed hostages, they arrived today in New Delhi. Some were weary, of course, others exultant after 8 harrowing days that included threats of death. The State Department says the hostages' release should not be the end of the matter. A spokesman called for the eventual prosecution of the hijackers.
On a Millennium 2000 special, join us as we explore the 4 corners of the world with guests Jean-Michel Cousteau and Steve Fawcett. The future of exploration on the network of the Millennium, CNN.
There was a CNN Time poll done just not long ago. People were asked, where will you be at midnight on New Year's Eve? 75% of them said at home. But Bernie, it looks like there are an awful lot of folks who are in New York or Washington or one of these other places celebrating.
An awful lot indeed, Judy. We're waiting for the president to speak on the Mall. Wolf and Fred, this is your last chance, or one of your last chances, to say something in 1999.
Well, I just want to say Happy New Year.
See, there they go.
We can't win. Happy New Year to you and to Judy. The President of the United States, in fact, has just started speaking here in front of the Lincoln Memorial. Here's the President.
Hey. We celebrate the past. We have honored America's remarkable achievements, struggles, and triumphs in the 20th century. We celebrate the future, imagining an even more remarkable 21st century. As we marvel at the changes of the last 100 years, we dream of what changes the next 100 and the next 1,000 will bring. And as powerful as our memories are, our dreams must be even stronger. For when our memories outweigh our dreams, we become old. And it is the eternal destiny of America to remain forever young, always reaching beyond, always becoming, as our founders pledged, a more perfect union. So we Americans must not fear change. Instead, let us welcome it, embrace it, and create it. The great story of the 20th century is the triumph of freedom and free people. A story told in the drama of new immigrants, the struggles for equal rights, the victories over totalitarianism, the stunning advances in economic well-being, in culture, in health, in space, in telecommunications, and in building a world in which more than half the people live under governments of their own choosing for the first time in all history. We must never forget the meaning of the 20th century, or the gifts of those who worked and marched, who fought and died for the triumph of freedom. So as we ring in this new year, in a new century, in a new millennium, we must, now and always, echo Dr. King in the words of the old American hymn, "Let Freedom Ring." If the story of the 20th century is the triumph of freedom, what will the story of the 21st century be? Let it be the triumph of freedom wisely used, to bring peace to a world in which we honor our differences and, even more, our common humanity. Such a triumph will require great efforts from us all. It will require us to stand against the forces of hatred and bigotry, terror and destruction. It will require us to continue to prosper, to alleviate poverty, to better balance the demands of work and family, and to serve each of us in our communities. It will require us to take better care of our environment. It will require us to make further breakthroughs in science and technology, to cure dread diseases, heal broken bodies, lengthen life, and unlock secrets from global warming to the black holes in the universe. And, perhaps most important, it will require us to share with our fellow Americans and increasingly with our fellow citizens of the world the economic benefits of globalization, the political benefits of democracy and human rights, the educational and health benefits of all things modern, from the internet to the genetic encyclopedia to the mysteries beyond our solar system. Now, we may not be able to eliminate all hateful intolerance, but we can develop a healthy intolerance of bigotry, oppression, and abject poverty. We may not be able to eliminate all the harsh consequences of globalization, but we can communicate more and travel more and trade more in a way that lifts the lives of ordinary working families everywhere and the quality of our global environment. We may not be able to eliminate all the failures of government and international institutions, but we can certainly strengthen democracy so all children are prepared for the 21st century world and protected from its harshest side effects. And we can do so much more to work together, to cooperate among ourselves, to seize the problems and the opportunities of this ever-small planet we all call home. In short, if we want the story of the 21st century to be the triumph of peace and harmony, we must embrace our common humanity and our shared destiny. Now, we're just moments from that new millennium. 2 centuries ago, as the framers were crafting our Constitution, Benjamin Franklin was often seen in Independence Hall, looking at a painting of the sun low on the horizon. When at long last the Constitution finally was signed, Mr. Franklin said, "I have often wondered whether that sun was rising or setting. Today I have the happiness to know it is a rising sun." Well, 2 centuries later, we know the sun will always rise on America as long as each new generation lights the fire of freedom. Our children are ready. So again, the torch is passed to a new century of young Americans.
Washington, D.C., New York City, and the countdown on the East Coast is underway. A matter of seconds, less than 45 seconds now, as we go down to approaching 30 seconds before the new millennium on the East Coast of the United States.
The fabled ball, now a Waterford crystal creation, is about to drop in Times Square. We will be there.
And let's get the sunrise and behind the Lincoln Memorial.
The marvelous thing about this, among many marvels, is that the weather is so extraordinarily good on the East Coast.
And you know, Bernie, I guess we're going to say it and say it again, but after all the worry, and we don't want to discount the possibility of anything going in the wrong direction, but to say that we are now, what, 9 minutes past midnight, and so far the pictures are all positive. It's celebration, it's lights, it's dancing, and a lot of happy faces.
The Tropicana, Havana, Cuba. Our bureau chief there, Lucia Newman, told us a short while ago that people do not necessarily celebrate this millennium this year. Next year, but not this year.
That's right, next year, and whatever the government says goes in Cuba.
Did we say Happy New Year to each other?
We didn't. Happy New Year, Bernie.
Thank you. And a Happy New Year to all the women and men of CNN around this globe who have been working so tirelessly for the past few months to bring you this story as we've been bringing it to you since yesterday morning, and we shall continue for days to come.
You know, Bernie, there was a poll, I mentioned a poll a minute ago, there was a poll that CNN and Time did not long ago, and what will you be doing at midnight on New Year's Eve? 62% said kissing someone. So I guess we just saw some of the 62%.
Well, Wolf Blitzer's not kissing anyone at the mall, are you, Wolf? And Fred Hickman? I doubt that you're doing that in New York's Times Square. Gentlemen?
I'm not kissing anyone, but I want to wish Fred Hickman a Happy New Year. You got a nice party going on over there, Fred.
Well, you're not doing too bad yourself in Washington, Wolf. Happy New Year to you, too. It's wonderful. You can't lose on a night like this. What a wonderful occasion this is.
I'll tell you, this is one of the most exciting moments here at the Washington Mall. You know, they're behind the Lincoln Memorial. You're seeing pictures of the Lincoln Memorial right now. There was a sun that was coming up. We really couldn't do justice on television. You had a lot more cameras over there at Times Square getting all of those great pictures. And I'm not trying to belittle what you were seeing over there, but here it was in the midst of what we saw here in Washington. Actual fire that was going on down this reflecting pool that's seen so much history over the years. It was just a thrilling moment. Goosebumps all over my body as I was trying to experience it. I was just grateful that we could all get through this moment, given all the buildup of Y2K, the computer bug. At least for now, so far, so good. Fred?
Well, isn't it a wonderful thing? You know, we have 2 million people compressed to this small area here in Midtown Manhattan, no incidents, and you know, it's been just a loving experience for everybody involved here. Spirits are so high, and my hope, I guess, for the new year for all of us is that we can continue on with that good feeling and carry it over into other areas of our lives and perhaps, you know, enjoy ourselves a lot more than we have the last 1,000 years. We should do this again in 3,000. What do you think?
We should do it again. In fact, you know, the amazing thing, and I can see hundreds of people. I don't know if you can see the faces around this reflecting pool, but everyone is really packed. You can't even move. It's packed. But everyone is being really nice. They're being very friendly. There's nothing, no negative vibes I'm getting at all. I'm just getting positive vibrations from everyone around me. It's been a real thrilling experience.
Yeah, the same for me. And I have to admit this to you. I've been to Super Bowls. I've covered many of them in my days in sport. I've covered World Series. I've covered any kind of sporting event you can think of. Heavyweight championship fights right here in New York City, as a matter of fact. But I have never, ever seen anything this thrilling, this exciting, and this historic that I've had a chance to be a part of. And it's just been a real pleasure, and it's been a real pleasure jousting with you, my good friend Wolf.
Hey, you know, we had a lot of fun.
I didn't mean a word of it.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. You had one advantage. You had the mayor of New York, Mayor Giuliani. Too bad we couldn't get the First Lady, Mrs. Clinton, over here. We could have had the two of them arguing a little bit over who was doing a better job.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll see you here next year this time, and we'll do it again. I'll give you another shot.
Hey, Happy New Year to all my friends in New York. You know, I'm from Buffalo.
I know that, and a Bills guy. I don't want to be talking out of school. Happy New Year to my family, too, back at Springfield, Illinois. And of course, you, Bernie and Judy.
You guys
and Judy.
You guys
Happy New Year to you guys.
Happy New Year to both of you. You guys are getting a little mushy here. We liked it when there was an edge to the conversation.
Yeah,
Bernie, I just want to say
modeling.
No, I know. But, you know, we keep showing these pictures of New York and Washington, but we should say, Bernie, there are 20 states and Washington, plus parts of two other states that are now in the year 2000. I don't know if we have time to name them all. Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Michigan, Georgia, Indiana, Connecticut, Maryland, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Delaware, Florida, New York, and parts of Kentucky and Tennessee. Those states are in 2 time zones.
And in this hemisphere, the Bahamas, Canada, we saw the live, beautiful area pictures from Toronto, the Cayman Islands, Colombia, Ecuador, Haiti, Jamaica, Peru, and in Panama. Panama now has official control of the Panama Canal Zone, having taken it from the United States. They lowered the American flag yesterday, a day before, and now it's official. The canal belongs to Panama and the Panamanians.
Pictures from the northern part of the North American continent, Toronto, Canada. And we're back in Times Square. It's probably worth reflecting for just a moment on what President Clinton had to say. He said if the 20th century celebrated freedom, he said, what is the 21st century to celebrate? What is the story of the 21st century? He said, let us hope it will be about freedom wisely used.
And here in Atlanta, home of CNN Center, there was a giant peach drop earlier at the Underground Mall. Nothing as dramatic as this, but the people in Atlanta are partying. And I must say that I was struck by something I saw here at CNN Center. At the stroke of midnight, while Wolf and Fred were doing their reporting and our other people were doing, here it is right here, look at this. This was the peach drop. Well, all of the hundreds of people at CNN Center inside this building, inside this newsroom, stood, applauded, and they were going around the computer terminal shaking hands and wishing everyone a happy new year. Quite a feeling, inside and outside.
Absolutely, and I want to repeat what Bernie said. Here we have Orlando, the home of Disney World, where there are more celebrations, fireworks. Some of these cities are going to look the same because it's still dark. It's midnight. We're going to have to wait for sunrise to tell where we are in the case of some of these places. Here we go. This is what it looked like in Niagara Falls, New York, when the clock struck 12.
How long do you think they'll be awake into the early hours of this new millennium?
Someone asked us tonight, Bernie, what does Auld Lang Syne mean? And I think we figured out that in so many words, not an exact translation, it's for old time's sake. And I just want to echo what Bernie said a few moments ago, that the many, many people of CNN around the world, across the United States, circling the globe, who have been at work on this incredible story for weeks, for days. We've seen a few of them on the air. There are many more of them you won't see, you won't hear their names, but they've all worked extraordinarily hard, and we want to say thank you to each and every one of them.
And continuing to work. This is Boston. It's nice to drop in on these parties and these celebrations and to continue moving around and stay where you are. We're going to keep doing this. This is for you, and we're enjoying every bit of it.
Newport, Kentucky. The bell they call
the Peace Bell.
The Peace Bell. Very heavy. I'm looking through my notes right now to see how much it weighs.
It's a very beautiful bell. And you can tell it does not have a crack.
33 tons, our esteemed boss, CNN President Rick Kaplan tells us, 33 tons. It weighs, it's ringing. In the state of Kentucky, clearly, Bernie, this is the part of Kentucky that is in the eastern time zone. There's another part of that state that's still 42 minutes from the year 2000.
Uh-oh, they're starting to get into the waiting pool, the reflecting pool in Washington, and that usually happens in the summertime when there are demonstrations and rallies, but this is an indication of just how moderate the temperature is in the nation's capital. People in the
well, either that or they're
reflecting
wearing
pool.
either that or they're wearing long underwear. and rubber boots or something.
The Motor City celebrations in Detroit, Michigan.
From Michigan, we move to Florida to Epcot Center, part of Disney World. Some pretty magical looking lights and music.
Indianapolis, Indiana, it's really something to have all of these live feeds coming in so that we can take you around the East Coast, and we're starting to venture out into the Midwest, because coming up in, less than 45 minutes, it's going to be the new millennium in the heartland.
You know, this whole day has been like that. We have had the luxury of watching our television sets as every part of the globe, every one of the 7 continents, so we haven't had any pictures from Antarctica, but other than that, we've watched the other 6 continents turn the page of their calendar to the year 2000, and even though, Bernie, we know that, more than half the people in the world don't really celebrate this Gregorian calendar that we're observing, the year 2000, still there's something special about the number 2000.
And as we continue this unprecedented coverage of the new millennium as it passes through 25 time zones, a quick reminder, you can follow our coverage for the next 3 days going into Tuesday morning. There were editions of USA Today on Friday indicating what we're going to be doing each hour of the day. And Saturday, Sunday, Monday, the topics of this new millennium that are so important to you and I will be expanded on and thoroughly explored on CNN.
And we're not even done with observing midnights. The last one to come is in Samoa. It'll be 6 o'clock in the morning Eastern time when Samoa recognizes midnight and the new millennium.
And in Chicago, our CNN bureau chief there, Jeff Flock, told us that at McCormick Place, they're getting ready to feed 3,500 people, people invited from every country on the planet. They came to Chicago. They were put up free. They were given clothing to combat Chicago's weather, although it's not very cold there now. And they're having a great time at McCormick Place right now on the shores of Lake Michigan.
And these are pictures earlier of New York City Times Square. That Waterford crystal ball we've heard so much about weighs over 1,000 pounds. It's not going to be used again. I wonder who gets to sweep the streets, Bernie, tomorrow.
2 million people here. 2 million people, 8,000 policemen and policewomen.
Just in Times Square, 7,000 or 8,000 policemen and women just in Times Square. We were told that 37,000 police, even the detectives, were wearing uniforms in New York City.
And as regards the Y2K rollover, at least as far as the United States military is concerned, when Greenwich Mean Time struck midnight, the rollover produced no problems. And they said so far the U.S. military has not been affected. Carl Rochelle reporting that the Federal Aviation Administration says everything was going very well. Frank Buckley is at Penn Station in New York City. Frank is getting ready to report from Penn Station. And we're back out in Times Square now. The crowd seems subdued, but everyone is just sort of catching their second wind now because they've been out there for hours, having got the best position they could get, and now they're just walking around and talking. This is how it looks outside. Inside Penn Station, let's go back to Frank Buckley.
Bernie, we are at Penn Station right now. This is some of the crowd that is heading back from Times Square. Some of the people trains will be running here, but some of them have been paused. Excuse me. I was hoping to talk to some of the people here to ask them about their hopes on New Year's Eve. Tell me your name again.
I'm Cassandra Dunham from Cleveland, Ohio.
Tell me, did you get down to Times Square tonight?
How did I get down? Is that what you said?
Did you get to Times Square tonight?
No, I was unfortunate to get to Times Square, but I did enjoy seeing the ball drop, which was very interesting because I've never seen that in real life. I've always had to see it on TV, but it was awesome. I loved it. It was beautiful. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. We are at Penn Station tonight, and there have been concerns about Y2K and the trains, and we can tell you that Amtrak and many of the train systems around the country and around the world have in fact decided to take a pause at just before midnight, some of them for a half hour up to 2 hours. So far, no problems have been reported. We can tell you that the pause that took place here at Penn Station has taken place, and those trains that were paused here have taken off. I'm going to toss it back to you, Bernie.
Thanks very much. How are your eardrums doing?
I think some of those folks want to be on television.
Indeed. Well, the Midwest is approaching its magic moment from Chicago to New Orleans.
New Orleans and places like Granbury, Texas. Our own Candy Crowley's there. We're going to be visiting a part of Texas close to Dallas.
And also in this hemisphere, Mexico City. And to the north, Winnipeg in Canada. And in Central America, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua. Waiting to welcome the Millennium. Our live coverage continues in a moment.
Well, we showed you some people dipping into the water of the mall there in Washington, D.C., between the Washington Monument.
You know, the last time I saw
Memorial.
someone doing this,
Look at
Judy,
this.
was when there was... Look at this.
Now, there must be some music. Can we hear the music that they're dancing to?
Maybe it's internal music.
It could very well be. You know,
The last time I saw someone dancing and standing in this reflecting pool before the steps of the Lincoln Memorial was when Stevie Wonder was singing at a tribute, the 20th anniversary of the Martin Luther King address from the memorial, the I Have a Dream speech during the March on Washington. And people were literally dancing, doing what these two young women were just doing, dancing in the reflecting pool.
you know, that Washington Monument, people may say, well, gee, when are they going to finish all the construction work on it? But when you light up the scaffolding around it, it is something to behold.
Well, the spirits are very high everywhere as the Millennium comes to the various time zones in the United States, in Central America, and Canada, and South America. And as our correspondents have indicated, everyone is in a good mood. No problems to report.
All right, you'd think that from these pictures in Washington and New York that it was all over but the shouting in the United States of America, but we're going to take you to a big city in the Midwest, Chicago. We don't know what they're doing in any pools in Chicago, but Jeff Flock, you're going to bring us up to date. They are having a very special celebration here.
Well, that camera, Judy and Bernie, that you see out there is out by the lakefront, but you'd have to be pretty crazy to get in the water tonight, even though it's fairly warm by Chicago standards. Inside here, the McCormick Place Convention Center, however, considerably warmer, and they are dancing it away. The Chicago 2000 International Millennium Celebration is on in full swing. Outside, there will be big-time fireworks in about a half an hour, and inside, you know, you spent a lot of money and time at CNN today talking to people all around the world. Well, the fact is all you had to do was come to Chicago because it's a veritable United Nations of people that have been brought here, two people from each country in the known world. And I have a group of them with me, and I'd like to first just ask you, what is your name and where are you from?
My name is Berit Kristoffersen. I came from Norway.
And you, sir?
Hans, I'm from Norway.
Hi, I'm Craig from Scotland.
Adenike Badejo from Nigeria.
I'm doing a better job from Nigeria.
Azdin Nekmouche from Morocco, Casablanca.
How has it been in Chicago? How's this experience been?
Wonderful, and it's a first experience that we hope that it will be every year like this in all over the world, because it's a message of peace that the world have to keep every year in mind and to repeat it for not forgiving it.
I must ask you if you're surprised that there haven't been any Y2K computer problems.
Yes, it has been a surprise that there was no problem with the Y2K compliances. And for one thing, Chicago is a country that has gone so well in computer and understands the technology of the new computer. So I am not surprised at all.
I must ask Krieg from Scotland that a while ago we saw some people in the mall in Washington, D.C. wading in the water. Billy, I'll ask you to show Krieg is wearing a native dress. Have you been bothered by the weather in Chicago?
No, it's been quite warm, fortunately, so it hasn't been a problem.
I must ask you, folks from Norway, finally, before we get away, what has been the best part of this experience of bringing virtually the entire world together?
Oh, I've been meeting all these different people, and to meet all these itself is a wonderful experience. And to meet the people of Chicago, too, has been very nice.
We appreciate you folks. A Noah's Ark here in Chicago tonight, and of course, we're not even close yet. We still have a good half hour away, and all I can say is we wasted a lot of money at CNN today going all around the world. All you had to do was come here to Chicago. Bernie, Judy.
Jeff Flock, thanks so very much. Well, we're not going to waste any time. Let's call in Lou Waters. He's in the Big Easy. Lou.
Yes, I am, Bernie, and I've been looking at all those pictures of the masses of humanity in Washington and New York. I heard Mayor Giuliani talk about spread out in a mile in all directions from Times Square. Take a look at Bourbon Street tonight. We're talking about 76, 78 square blocks packed in like sardines down there. But unlike the rowdy and gaudy Mardi Gras, you'll even see a few tuxedos and evening gowns associated with this Millennium celebration here in the Big Easy. Although they're crowded in and there are many tens of thousands of people, perhaps hundreds of thousands, it's not as big as Mardi Gras, the police tell me. Hotels are about 80-90% booked. They're 100% booked for Mardi Gras. It is a big party. All police are off their days off and vacations through next Wednesday, because after this party comes the Sugar Bowl at the Superdome on Tuesday. Back-to-back parties to start out the new year. We are moved down here on the edge of the Mississippi River, where it's getting a little cool now, fog rolling in. It's been very warm days. It's a gentle evening, but there's a slight chill in the air now as we await in the next 25 minutes or so for them to light the candle on the barges out here in the middle of the Mississippi River and shoot the massive fireworks display over Jackson Square and over the Riverwalk here, where some of those sardines have managed to squeeze out of Bourbon Street, and they're joining us down here now for the big show. Bernie, Judy.
All right, Blue Waters, that's something definitely we would look forward to. 78 square blocks. You know, I know the folks in New York are proud of what they've got. And look, here's Washington. We're back in the mall in Washington. It looks like a lot of people are getting into the water there in the reflecting pool. We leave you with that picture as the clock says we are just 25 minutes away from midnight in the central time zone of the United States, parts of Canada, parts of South America. There's been a big celebration in New York City, especially one at Times Square, but a very personal thing has happened between two people there. Our own Gary Tuckman. I don't want to spill the beans completely, Gary.
Well, Judy, Times Square is empty now, but there are a lot of stories in the big city. Great story happened tonight as we entered the new millennium. This couple right over here, this couple, these two stand next to me from Ohio, this gentleman proposed to this lady, and you said...
I said yes.
And show me what you have on your finger.
I have a beautiful engagement ring. Beautiful, I love it.
Now tell me the story. Was there any doubt she would say yes to you?
Yeah, I was a little bit worried coming up here, but the clock ticked down, and luck was on my side. She said yes. It's the best New Year's I've ever had in my life.
So tell me exactly when you proposed to her. Was it before or after the millennium began?
I waited till the end of the countdown, and once the fireworks went off and we could hear voices again, I proposed to her, and she said yes.
So it was in the year 2000?
No, yes, it was in the year.
You gotta know that, what year you proposed to her. So when are you gonna get married?
I don't know. I don't know. I just found out about it now.
Okay, well, we're glad you said yes. A lot of people are having a good time here in Times Square, especially this couple, as they celebrate the new millennium in a very nice way. Bernie and Judy, back to you.
Gary, what are their names? You going to tell us?
I think he's going away from us.
Folks, can you still hear me?
Yes, we can.
You know what? One question I didn't ask you guys, a very important one. So everyone in the world who's watching right now knows your names. What are your names?
Suzanne Hall.
And your name?
Jay Erickson.
Very nice meeting you. Good luck to both of you. Bernie and Judy, back to you.
And quickly to Texas. Candy Crowley is in Texas, and Candy, there's love in the air.
Yes, there is. I can't come up with a couple about to be married. However, we have run several times into a young married woman who is very pregnant, says she's about to give birth any day, and she has written Baby 2000 across her belly, which she's shown us several times. We are here in Granbury, Texas. What you're looking at is the courthouse, which really is the centrifugal force of this town, around which all of the New Year's Eve activities have gathered. Right now, they're listening to the tones of Larry Joe Taylor, a Texas-bred country western singer. He is the one that is going to lead the countdown to New Year's here in this small town of about 6,000. There's 2,000 to 3,000 here in the town square. Various activities, painters, palm readers, sort of a mix of a kind of a circus and a New Year's Eve, a sort of family time. Children, they just got finished doing the conga to one of the songs here. Right now, what they're waiting for is what people in every city we've seen so far in the last 22, 23 hours are waiting for, and that is for the strike of midnight, when they will listen to the bell peal off the top of this courthouse. This bell was constructed by the same firm that did Big Ben. It is something they're very proud of. They will also tell you that it has rung in 1 century before this, so this is the 2nd century for this town of Granbury, which really is sort of become a historic restoration and has moved from an agricultural community, and then in the 60s began its restoration, and now is a big tourist attraction. And so they have thrown this New Year's Eve party and calling it Back to the Future, because indeed this town found its future in its past by reconstructing all of these buildings, some of them from the late 1900s into the late 1800s into the 20th century. So they are prepared here. We have less than a half hour to go. Children ranging from babies up to elderly couples have been in the town square, and they're just waiting, like everyone else has across the world, for the midnight to strike. Bernie and Judy?
Candy, I listen very closely to you always, and earlier in one of your reports you said the town square is the epicenter there?
It is. I mean, the town square is sort of what they have built up around. The town is obviously bigger than this, but this is where sort of the centrifugal force, really. The town's main shops are around here, mostly antiques, souvenirs, that kind of thing. I have to tell you, there's a lot of folklore that they pass along to the tourists that come here. Also, this will give you an idea of what sort of town it is. 26 bed and breakfasts are here. So people across Texas. We were at bed and breakfast this morning, and we're with 2 couples who were celebrating their anniversary. So this draws them in from all around Texas, and they were hoping that some would come from outside this town, and indeed they appear to have come from all over Texas here to help celebrate in Granbury.
And Candy, picking up on your point about the lady with Baby 2000 or words to that effect written across her belly, courtesy of the Reuters wire service, 2 twin boys born in Berlin, Germany, this night. One born in one millennium, the 2nd millennium, the other one born 5 minutes later in the 3rd millennium.
And wherever you're watching and listening.
They win.
And to you, our viewers, wherever you're watching and listening, our worldwide coverage. As we get ready to pause for a moment, look at this. Sunrise over Beijing. Sunrise over Beijing. Sunrise over Beijing, now over the Great Wall, and this is Tiananmen Square.
is a picture to take your breath away. Midnight in Athens, the Acropolis, a 2,500-year-old structure. The citadel of ancient Athens, built on a limestone hill, built in the golden age of Athens during the reign of Pericles in the 5th century BC. And it does take your breath away. To North America now, to Mexico, Mexico City. CNN's Harris Whitbeck is there as they await in 14 minutes the new millennium. Harris.
Judy, you know, there's a old Aztec prophecy from the 14th century that said that while the world existed, there would be no end to the glory and the fame of Mexico. And the organizers of tonight's event have certainly kept that in mind as they've gathered over 200,000 people at the Mexico's main square, the Zócalo, here in downtown Mexico City. Now, that celebration, of course, started many hours earlier, not only here in the Zócalo, but also on the streets of Mexico City. It started early afternoon with street concerts on Mexico City's main thoroughfare. Mariachis, salsa singers, even hard rockers were out to entertain thousands. Streets normally filled with traffic or demonstrators were today crowded with people out to have fun.
They like to celebrate a lot, every kind of festivities, and I think they do it quite well.
And people expressing their hopes for the best in the new year. This man says 2000 is a year brimming with hope. Hopes that people will be more tolerant and generous to others. Throughout this city of 20 million people, the celebration of the start of the new millennium has been impossible to ignore. Mexico City's monument to the revolution, a huge triumphal arch located in the heart of the city, was specially lit up. But the main center of attraction is the Zócalo, Mexico City's main square, where a huge party got underway as dusk fell on 1999. Judy, and that party is continuing now. We're only minutes away from midnight here, and we're waiting for about 200 mariachi bands that will be playing two serenades, one for the old year and one for the new one that's coming. It's tradition here that you sing songs to people as you say goodbye to them and as you welcome them and on their birthdays. So that's what we'll be expecting here in the next few minutes. Judy?
Thank you, Harris. We've been reading of high security, Bernie, there in Mexico City. We're so happy to see that so far all is smooth and happy.
And happy. People are waiting in Mexico City. They're also waiting in Las Vegas, as is Lauren Sidney.
That's right. They are waiting to get married. We are back here in Las Vegas overlooking that famous 4-mile strip from our perch at the Four Seasons Hotel. Now, Y2K glitches are not expected to affect Vegas hitches. Gambling, drinking, and show-going aren't the only things to do here. Saying I do has become a very popular activity, especially this New Year's Eve. We sent our Paul Verkaman, who is happily married, to the Little Chapel of the West to check out some New Year's nuptials.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here for a fast-forward version, a fast-break version of weddings in Las Vegas. Many couples tying the knot this New Year's Eve. And these are now Mr. and Mrs. Baca from Orange County, California. We understand you got married earlier. Why did you want to beat the year 2000 deadline?
Because I'm really into the Old West. In fact, we go to Tombstone, Arizona every year on the anniversary of the gunfight at OK Corral, and I feel like with the 1900s, a lot of the Old West is dying out. And 2000 sounds like space age, so we wanted to do it while it was still the 1900s.
One last cowboy yeehaw. How are you feeling right now emotionally? You okay with all of this?
Yeah. It was scarier than the ride up top of that stratosphere, but it was fun. It was okay. It was beautiful, really. It turned out really pretty.
Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Baca, on your entry into marital bliss. We should note that the Clark County Clerk's Office is putting on extra staff members because so many people are going to tie the knot in Las Vegas. The numbers are hard to estimate, but maybe up to 2,000 couples, so multiply by 2, 4,000 people will get married here in Las Vegas, maybe the romance capital of the world right now. I'm Paul Verkaman reporting from Las Vegas.
It is a little over 2 minutes to midnight Central Standard Time, the next time zone to step into the new millennium. Through the heartlands of America, CNN will take you to the latest celebrations for the arrival of 2000.
We'll also keep track of celebrations continuing in other parts of the world where the new year got a roaring welcome.
From Canada through mid-America to New Orleans to Texas and Mexico, we are in cities large and small.
CNN coverage of Millennium 2000 rolls on right now.
In your upper left-hand corner, the Windy City, the largest fireworks display in Chicago's history, about to get underway. We are at 1 minute and 8 seconds and counting.
People in Granbury, Texas are poised in the town square.
In New Orleans, our own Lou Waters told us 78 square blocks jammed with people.
Mexico City, where 200 mariachi bands are ready to salute national glory and fame.
And back we go to Washington, D.C., the Lincoln Memorial, live pictures, fireworks continuing into the night. It is now an hour into the year 2000 in the nation's capital. This was the plan all along. There would be fireworks earlier, closer to the Washington Monument. And at 1 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock in the morning, 1 hour into the new millennium, fireworks over the memorial named after the 16th President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln.
Less than 10 seconds, the new millennium arriving in the Midwest, also in Winnipeg, Canada, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua. Here it is.
Fizzled. What was that? This is Chicago, right?
Let's show Granbury something they've never seen before. The good folks at CNN, let's show it around the world.
Yes. Yes, if you can hear me, yes.
On down to San Antonio. Watch it.
Very interesting as we watch the fireworks over Lake Michigan on the shores of Chicago. Guess what? Last year this time, this city and its residents were suffering under 22 inches of snow. And Jeff Flock, have you seen a flake tonight?
Not a one, Bernie, and you know, it's been a beautiful night, and you can see the fireworks are just gorgeous. It's been unseasonably warm. These people are tremendous, but the reason that I think I couldn't think of any better place to be than Chicago tonight is the people that you see. The faces from literally 200, I think, and 205 is now the total, countries from around the world. 2 people from each of those countries coming here. A pharmacist from Albania, a priest from Bulgaria, a farmer from Indonesia, a housewife from Mexico. The list goes on, all coming together in Chicago tonight, which has always been a melting pot, but probably never more so than at this very moment. As this new millennium, perhaps, if that's the way you look at it, is rung in here. And it's really been an extraordinary evening to spend time with these people and just watch the whole world come together, both on CNN as well as here in Chicago. Bernie.
Jeff Flock, our Chicago bureau chief. Pretty pictures.
You know, we don't have cameras everywhere, Bernie, that is turned midnight in the Central Time Zone, but let's mention again some of the states: Wisconsin, well, Illinois, Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, Louisiana, Missouri, Iowa, Minnesota, Texas, Oklahoma, plus parts of Kentucky, Tennessee, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, and most of Kansas. And not only that, in Central America, Costa Rica, El Salvador, the Galapagos Islands, Guatemala, Honduras. We've already seen pictures in Mexico, and let's not forget Nicaragua. And Bernie, you mentioned Winnipeg, Canada. A big chunk of Canada has joined the Millennium.
And as an Illinoisan, we can't forget the next door Hoosier state, Indiana. They have varying time zones, so it comes and it goes in that state. Let's go down to New Orleans and see what the folks in the Big Easy are doing. Lou Waters is there.
Already someplace that they have to be, such as at the Red Cross Gala at the Hyatt Hotel right across the river. That's where News 8 Austin's Nicole Traynor is.
Watching the Rockets, red glare, green glare, any kind of glare you like, but we have an interesting situation. I may have told you earlier that because of the warmth of the day, it was mid to high 70s today here in New Orleans. Cold water, we got fog rolling in, and some of these rockets going up can't be seen behind the mist. No signs of disappointment among the crowd that is packed in here. As I mentioned earlier, the French Quarter is packed in, and some of those have spilled over here now onto the Riverwalk to watch the show, and it's packed in here. This is the culmination of one heck of a week here in the Big Easy tonight with Fats Domino and Cyril Neville appearing down at the Hyatt Hotel. We have the Neville brothers over at the Harris Casino here. Dr. John moved through here early in the week, As you know, music is always great here in the Delta. Some of the best local blues bands anywhere in the world are here. But if you can't afford those tickets, all you have to do is walk along the street here in New Orleans, and you'll hear music on every corner. And that's the way it's been all week long. Tonight is no exception. This party is liable to go on quite some time into the night, as you know. It's not as big as Mardi Gras, but it's just as enthusiastic. And this kind of party can tucker you out. And tonight just might do the trick. Bernie, Judy?
I don't think it's going to tucker Lou Waters out.
He doesn't look tuckered.
He sure doesn't. All right, if that's the picture in Louisiana and New Orleans.
Back to you, Bernard and Judy.
Thank you, Femi. Christiane Amanpour was reporting rain in London as we saw the Millennium arrive there.
And she was, and as you looked at that map, as Femi was pointing out, it looks like half of Great Britain is experiencing inclement weather. We've done a lot of talking, Bernie, tonight and this morning about time, the passage of time, time as at midnight as it races around the globe, but time not only as it applies to the world, but also as it applies to our own lives. More on the passing of time from CNN's Candy Crowley.
Like, how did they start the millennium? How did they start the New Year's?
Marking time, one of life's most precise activities, until you live it.
It sort of seems like it has been a long time ago, but then if you just think back, it seems like you were born just a couple of minutes ago, because it's like it hasn't been that long since you were, well, it's been long, but then you think back and it seems like it hasn't been.
The truth is, 8 years is a long time, if that's the oldest you've ever been.
When I was born, World War I was only 9 months old, and there's been a lot of history ever since then. And it's just a great life. Just keep living. That's my point. Don't stop.
A funny thing about the clock, just when you learn to tell time, you start to understand that it doesn't tell you much.
When you're having fun, it goes slow because you're having... Wait a minute. Yeah, when you're having fun, it goes slow because you get to play a lot and you feel like you get to play a whole bunch. But when you're not having fun, no, wait a minute. When you're not having fun, it goes slow. And when you're having fun, it goes quick.
Trains run by the clock. People run on something more forgiving, something that defies the tick-tock of an hour, a day, a year. People run on lifetime, and it is ever out of sync with clock time.
It seems just like yesterday you were just like in first grade.
I can't believe I've been here already 61 years, going on 62, and I'm ready for retirement.
Clock time never changes. 60 seconds to a minute, 60 minutes to an hour, 24 hours to a day. Lifetime can stand still.
Oh, a couple hours seems real long to me.
And at the other end of lifetime, it flies.
When we go into the Smithsonian and places like that, and you see things that have happened in 1931 and 34 and things, and I realize that 35 was my birthday, you know. And when my daughter tells me that I can't throw anything away because it might be an antique.
Clock time is measured by the sweep of a hand. Lifetime is measured by the feel of the soul.
Oh, yes, yes, because I think I'm still 25.
Yes, very hard to realize age in relation to what you really think about.
Lifetime is measured by the face of a child.
I'll tell you when it dawns on you, when you're young, when you're married, you have babies, and one day you look up and they're all gone.
The father in Fiddler on the Roof sang about lifetime at his daughter's wedding. I don't remember growing older. When did they?
When you have 50-year-old children, why, you have a little more realization of time that's gone by.
Lifetime connects us to the ages for the time when clock time runs down.
I feel like a bridge. My grandmother was born in 1884. My granddaughter was born in 1984. And I think it's wonderful that I'm in between there, and I knew my grandmother and my granddaughter. I think it's great.
Clock time tells us when to wake up, when to go to work, when to celebrate.
I can't believe that. I just can't believe it's actually 2000. I just can't. It's just such a, you know,
something that we never look like it's going to happen.
And they have these little clocks that do countdowns. And if I had one in my room, I would try to speed it or just want to make it go quicker because it takes so long.
How late are you going to stay up?
12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning. I would stay up all night.
Clock time is something you mark.
40 seconds.
Lifetime is something you experience.
Life is a lot of fun, and this is an order to you. Live it.
Candy Crowley, CNN, Washington.
Absolutely fascinating, just fascinating.
It really is. If I can read just quickly, if you'll indulge me, from the end of a poem written by Robert Pinsky, the poet laureate, a toast for 2000, he says, as the centuries pass, past, present, and future, victims, villains, and heroes, each crosses the calendar border and disappears or lives in memory that numbers all the years. And my apologies for reading only a portion of this magnificent poem that deserves
apologies accepted. Very, very uplifting. A new millennium is approaching Western Canada and the United States when we come back. It is 2 minutes and 30 seconds to midnight Pacific Standard Time. The Millennium Sweep returns to the Pacific as CNN tracks 2000 to the west coast of North America.
But in Seattle, the celebration has been tempered by that city's concern about terrorism.
The new year makes a port call in Vancouver and San Francisco.
And it is starring in Las Vegas and Los Angeles. CNN continues its Millennium 2000 coverage right now.
In the upper left-hand corner of your screen, in the City of Angels, Los Angeles is counting down.
And in the upper right-hand corner, Las Vegas, the biggest party in town, we're told, a downtown light show and concert covering 4 city blocks.
And from Nob Hill to the waterfront, this is San Francisco.
And finally, Vancouver, the westernmost big city in our neighbor to the north, Canada. First night, a family-oriented, we are told, alcohol-free event.
Everyone counting backwards now as the new millennium hits the western United States and Canada.
40 seconds to go until these 4 great cities in the rest of the Pacific time zone, and that includes the states of Washington, Seattle, the state of Oregon, California, and we're looking here at Nevada, and the westernmost portion of Canada. Countdown. Maybe we should be quiet and listen to what's going on. San Francisco.
in Las Vegas watching these pictures and listening to the same sound that we're watching. Paul? And in Hollywood, Kira Phillips is there at that famous sign.
That's right, Bernie. You're looking live at the Hollywood sign where John Bryan is performing up on the stage. I don't know if you can see him. He's right between the L and the Y. First time ever for a live performer. There we go. We got a close shot of John Bryan. He's described as one of LA's hottest producers. Quirky King of Cool is actually his nickname. Recently, he put the polishing touches on Fiona Apple's new album. He also did the score for the new film Magnolia. And he's a very popular session musician here in LA. A lot of people know his name. He's worked with a wide range of artists, from Melissa Etheridge to 9 Inch Nails. I don't know if you can hear him or not. Can you hear him singing, Bernie?
Paul Verkaman, what's the mood there in Las Vegas, too?
Well, in Las Vegas, they say it's a city of great hedonism. It's just sheer exuberance here. One of the newest hotels in Las Vegas is the Paris, and the Eiffel Tower here sort of simulated a giant champagne bottle that was being uncorked for all the world to see. The top of it was spouting all sorts of sparks and confetti and fireworks. There are a lot of people right now in Las Vegas who are, for lack of a better term, partying on the street, but there's an awful lot of people indoors, some 1,300 of them, in fact, indoors watching Barbra Streisand right now. And I'm at the Four Seasons, very close to the Mandalay Bay. Next door, you've got Bette Midler performing and a myriad of other concerts. So it's sort of a dual-pronged party here with a lot of the revelers out there having a good time and many other people taking in their favorite artist, not the least of which, of course, is Barbra Streisand, with some of those tickets going for up to $2,500 a pop. And I have to tell you, I was in the Barbra Streisand show briefly, and I watched some of it. And when she appeared, it had the feeling of not so much a music concert, but a football game. When she stepped onto that stage, the MGM just exploded, and there was this roar. She went into her routine. She looked fit as a fiddle, and everybody inside that concert hall, I'll tell you, was telling me that they got their money's worth. A lot of A-list stars there, including Rod Steiger and Paul Rodriguez, some big movers and shakers from Hollywood. Studio types had also showed up. So Las Vegas is living up to its reputation as a fun city right now, Bernie, as the people are, as I said, on the street and in the various casinos, and they're whooping it up in fine tradition.
Okay, Paul Verkaman, as we look at San Francisco.
And in San Francisco, we're hearing maybe you could call it more ethereal music. And on location for CNN, our own Greg Lefebvre. Greg, is there something going on at the Golden Gate Bridge?
Well, the Golden Gate Bridge was a very quiet affair, as we learned earlier this year when the city canceled its plans to host a fireworks show at the Golden Gate Bridge. The early stories were that there wasn't enough money in the public coffers to come up with such a celebration, and so the celebrations were concentrated to the one you see here along the Embarcadero, the central point of San Francisco's waterfront. There you see the clock tower at the Ferry Building, a very famous landmark on the waterfront at San Francisco. A beautiful night in San Francisco. Fog was threatening the skies, and a very potent and familiar weather condition there in the Bay Area. But as you can see, the fog certainly hasn't affected the folks down there along the Embarcadero, enjoying themselves as the fireworks and the music play on. Judy?
Well, Greg, I don't know whether to trust the information I have. I'm sorry about that, about the Golden Gate reference. We also were told that there was the world's largest martini glass that was going to be illuminated on the 7th story of the Westin St. Francis Hotel with a giant olive that was going to drop several stories. Am I wrong about that, too?
You're right. The rumors were true, and there were plans indeed. But then in the plaza below at Union Square, it clashed with a theme. Down in Union Square below the St. Francis Hotel was to be an alcohol-free peace rally. And the folks at the St. Francis Hotel, an historic old place in San Francisco, decided that perhaps it was not necessarily appropriate to have both of those events at the same time, and so they canceled the Martini.
Greg, I'm wondering how much of this reticence to really open up the city coffers had to do with the fact that you had a runoff in the elections, and then you had the second election for the mayor's race.
You know, I think it distracted an awful lot of people. There was a lot of money that went into both of those campaigns. There perhaps might have been a question about who would be the leader of the city while all this was going on. But the bottom line is the bottom line, and you can only afford so many parties in a city like San Francisco. Remember, the whole town is only 7 miles by 7 miles. But two large events are going on in the city. Of course, the one you see here along the Embarcadero, and then the other event at Union Square. Two big parties with perhaps tens of thousands of people in each. That pretty much straps the city's resources, and the folks around town figured it was a pretty wise decision to limit it to these two events.
Well, it looks pretty spectacular from where Bernie and I are sitting. With
the town indeed knows how to throw a party.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, what is the Y2K storyline out of your city?
The Y2K storyline is we probably should enjoy the fireworks because there is not much of a Y2K story.
All right, Greg Lefebvre, and look at that. In San Francisco, they may have cut back, but it still looks pretty spectacular. To another city now where there was even more of a cutback in celebrations because of concerns about security. The city, Seattle, our correspondent, Rusty Dornan. Rusty.
Well, Judy, there was quite a cutback. They were supposed to have a millennial bash of 50,000 people in and around the Space Needle. Now, the Space Needle, of course, is the landmark of the city. It was built during the World's Fair in 1962. It symbolizes the future of Seattle, also the coming of age of Seattle. So when it was canceled, it was a big disappointment to many people in Seattle. However, the fireworks go on as they do every year. And it was a very short but spectacular firework display, as you can see. In the beginning, they had even tried to spell out the year 2000 from the top of the dome. Now, in many years, they have fog that obscures the top of the dome, which has been a problem. This year, as you can see, it was clear, it was beautiful. People did gather around the outside of the Space Needle on the streets. The police were preventing people from gathering in any large crowds. But I don't think there were any problems in dispersing people. In the area we were, there were maybe a few hundred people. We could hear people screaming from around us. So we do know that they were probably scattered around the area and also in the hills all around Seattle. They have a very good vantage point of the Space Needle. But of course, Seattle did cut back on its big Millennium Bash. Due to possible threats of terrorism and, of course, on the heels of the violence that occurred during the World Trade Organization protests. So a lot of the Seattleites stayed home, came out at the last minute to see the fireworks, but were disappointed they couldn't have a giant party like so many of the other places in the world to ring in the new millennium. Judy?
Rusty Dornan, thank you very much from Seattle.
And from there, we roll on to Hollywood once again. Here's Kira Phillips.
Hey, I'm pretty excited. I can say I spent New Year's with Jay Leno.
Oh, boy, Paris and Bethlehem, they really paled in comparison to our sign, huh?
Hey,
8 floodlights from the Home Depot.
Oh, it's 416 lighting experts. Come on, Jay, give us a break.
There may be 416 lighting experts out here, but they're not up there. Look at that, look at that.
Well, why didn't you get up
and sing? It looks like all naked inside. Look at it, this looks like a strip joint.
Hey, this is from you. This is from Rick Kaplan, our president.
Rick, thank you very much. But I didn't realize I had to take a drug test to get in here.
Hey, listen, what have you done all night besides cause trouble?
Oh, it's just been fun. New Year's Eve, you're just in Seattle, which is looked. No, did they have theirs or didn't they?
Yeah, of course they did. Everybody was having the celebration.
Because I know
you saw.
so many terrorists had to cancel. They were all stuck at the airport and they couldn't fly out. They had to change flights. It was terrible. You know, they canceled something at the last minute and everybody's got to make other plans.
Did you rehearse this monologue?
No, I did not.
Oh, we didn't know we were going to have you with us.
Well, you know who's got the best party? Bin Laden. Boy, that is the hot party.
Have you been hanging out with Osama again?
No, because nobody is going to pull anything because he's, that's where it's all happening.
You're taking away the limelight. Now look at this. How can you say that's not spectacular?
That's pretty spectacular, isn't it? Oh, man. I like when they release the doves in Bethlehem. They released 2,000 doves and then fireworks. Whose idea was that? The NRA? I mean, it looked like the doves are going, hey, it's a trick. They're trying to kill us. I mean, the doves are getting blown up in midair.
I need some help here. Anybody?
Did you
Help?
see Vatican City? The Pope lit an M80. I couldn't believe
Here,
it.
I'm going to give you the mic. You just kind of take
here
over.
you go. No, thank you, thank you.
Oh, you're not drinking?
Oh, look at the time. I've got to run. Oh.
What are you doing next?
Next, I'm going to go home and watch the Dukes of Hazzard marathon on TBS.
Wait a minute. Okay.
This is the cheesiest New Year's Eve.
So this is the funnest you've had then so far.
This is the funnest I've had? Oh, my God. Is this one of the gooder interviews?
Yes, don't you think? Isn't this stimulating?
Oh, what fun this is. It is stimulating.
Do you have a message for Ted Turner, by the way?
For Ted? Well, no, actually, I don't.
Oh, now he gets serious.
No, I don't have a message for Ted, actually. I've been trying to get Ted on the Tonight Show. Ted, come on. Come on, I did your cheesy network. Come on ours.
All right, give us a break. How are your ratings, by the way?
Very good. That's why I can afford to say this stuff.
Now, Bernie and Judy have a lot better ratings.
You know my
is what
favorite
I
thing
hear.
about CNN? You know what I love about CNN?
What do you love
my
about
favorite thing?
CNN?
Whenever there's a hurricane or a disaster, they send out their fattest and baldest reporters. You ever notice that? When there's like a glamorous story, it's always Wolf Blitzer, and then when there's like a...
Don't you rip on Wolf.
No, but then when there's like then when there's like some kind of rainstorm, there's one of those poor guys I never heard of chained to a pole in Miami. It's hysterical.
Judy, Bernie, can I have some help here, please?
Well, no, tell them the person changed the pole was at another network.
Wait a minute, Bernie, what was that message?
Crowley out there.
No, I said the person changed to the pole was at another network.
Oh, I got to go.
It was Manny Show on Bench.
Hey, thanks for joining us, Jay. You sure you don't want the champagne? All right. I think the mayor would have been a lot easier to interview you guys. Woo, I'm sweating right now.
Well, you know, he's a big fan of CNN.
Well, evidently so. A big fan of Kira's. You think he was auditioning for a job as a correspondent?
I've had a very good time. Maybe we should ask him, hey, you guys want to host his show? I'd love to get you on there.
Kira Phillips.
Oh,
I think he was a little too strong about that. I think that's a very nice sign behind you, so I would take exception with what Mr. Leno said.
Well, Leno is a marvelous host. You know that.
Yes.
We'll be back. Don't go away. The year 2000 in Las Vegas. In San Francisco, Greg Lefebvre has been at the Hewlett-Packard's Y2K Center. Let's check in with him.
Well, welcome to Y2 Not. It's been a marvelously, perilously fun, slow night here in Palo Alto, California, where the folks at Hewlett-Packard are running their Y2K command center. They are coordinating something like 100 offices in 50 different countries out of this room, checking to make sure that their systems and the systems of their customers roll over into the new year. We are now something like into 20 time zones already, and so far, not a glitch. With me is Brad Whitworth, who's been the honcho here since it was dark this morning. Brad, you guys have been taking some calls here. What are the kinds of calls you get?
When we've been tracking our customer calls, and there haven't been that many, we're finding that only about 3% of our total call volume is dealing with Y2K issues. A lot are just routine support calls that we might get from some of our biggest customers. And when you look at the consumer kinds of customers, the PCs in the home, it's an even smaller percentage. Less than 1% of our calls really deal with Y2K.
Now, I was hearing a story earlier today that in Singapore, the folks were calling you because they were bored because there wasn't enough call activity to begin with. Is that typical, or?
I think it's been a little bit of a slow day, and we've been looking for things to do as we've been monitoring websites, we've been talking to customers, we've been talking a lot to HP people all over the globe, trying to ascertain what, if any, Y2K issues really are emerging.
Now, your own company has something like 13,000 servers, 150,000 computers of your own. Over the 4 or 5 years you've been doing this, you're also trying to satisfy your customers and yourself. Doesn't that put a strain on things?
I would say if things got really hectic, it probably would have been a bit of an issue of allocating resources, but we made the decision early on that customers come first, and we were going to do everything we could, even on our internal systems, to make sure the ones we supported first were the ones that supported customers. We didn't have to make that choice, though, today because it's been pretty quiet.
Okay, Brad Whitworth, thank you very much. We are told also that this command center will stay on what they call high alert through Monday, which, of course, is the first big business day in the U.S., and then we'll pick up steam a little bit later on in February as we go into the new leap year calculations and possibly into the first week of March. But so far, it's been actually a fairly quiet night here, and for the folks in this company anyway, and the 100,000 or so that work here, a pretty thankful day as well. Bernie and Judy, back to you in Atlanta.
All right, Greg Lefebvre, thanks very much for that look from Palo Alto. Now back to New York City, to Times Square, to Fred Hickman. Fred, any Y2K problems with sweeping the streets of New York?
Well, you know what, Judy? Interestingly enough, they have not come up with any sort of technical breakthrough that'll substitute for a good push broom and a bucket out here, and there's plenty of debris to get up. 4 tons of confetti was dumped off of these buildings, or shot out actually, by some 150 confetti cannons, and now this massive cleanup is beginning. But you'll notice there's still quite a good crowd right around the Con Ed stage in the middle of Times Square as the celebrations do continue right through 6 a.m. Eastern time as we celebrate every time zone. It started early this morning, and the people have just not stopped. They're still here. They're still having a good time. Many are making their way home now, but we've also noticed that in addition to the cleanup crews here, the NYPD generator trucks that were out here, just in case, they had some special things set up. Had there been some sort of an emergency to get the people cleared out, a loudspeaker system and a whole evacuation system in place. None of that was necessary, so some of those guys are starting to pull out now. So indeed, it is winding down, but it has been just an incredible evening here, from the Waterford Crystal Ball coming down to, you know, just all of the many, many people out here. They estimate somewhere around 2.5 million people were in Times Square tonight, all the way from 34th Street down to 59th Street, between 6th and 8th Avenues, just wall-to-wall people. And the great news, once again, I need to reiterate this, it was a police operation as well as, you know, just good planning. But the people here, the New Yorkers and the visitors, were so well-behaved and so full of love. We only had 14 arrests on the evening, and those were for minor offenses. So all in all, I think this has probably been one of the most raving successes, along with it being the largest party ever thrown in this particular part of New York ever. I don't know how they're going to top it quite, but it's been a lot of fun to watch.
Maybe not quite as much fun to clean up, but
no.
A lot of fun to watch.
Well, I have to tell you, though, you know, I'm a little bit envious because Lauren Sidney, I think, has been getting both of your attention. She's been giving you stuff all night, so I got you these. A couple of nice hats. I'll bring those back with me.
You better deliver on all this stuff, Fred.
Oh, I'll take care of you. Don't worry about it. Glasses, the whole bit.
Fred Hickman, and then he rested. When we come back, more of our continuing live coverage, and this is how it looked in Las Vegas at the stroke of midnight and the year 2000.
The Great Pyramids of Egypt, sunrise over that part of northeastern Africa, the African continent. The pyramids built 2,000 years, 2,500 years before the birth of Christ. In fact, we are reminded that the pyramids are the only one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world still standing. This is a remarkable sight indeed. So that's what it looks like right now at sunrise, Bernie. For a look back at what it felt like and looked like when midnight hit that part of the world, let's go to CNN's own Ben Wiedemann. Ben.
The star of the show at Egypt's top Millennium celebration never showed up. The Pyramid of Cheops, the biggest of Giza's pyramids, remained shrouded in a thick desert mist. The other pyramids barely got in the act. The fog also made it impossible for French composer Jean-Michel Jarre to show off his famed laser graphics. He compensated by firing off a steady stream of fireworks. Security was rushed, and it appeared the emphasis was on keeping the festivities dry.
I'm now that you're bringing my whiskey again.
No whiskey.
Your what?
With most Egyptians observing the holy month of Ramadan, the government banned the consumption of alcohol at the concert. But the ban and the bad weather did little to dampen the enthusiasm of a very international and predominantly young crowd, each celebrating the beginning of the new millennium in their own unique way. There are parties around the world, says this man from Milan, but the best is here at the pyramids.
The music, there's life. Everybody's happy, and it's obviously a very difficult area, a lot of conflict in the region, but you have a feeling that this one night you're going to have 60,000 people from around the world all coming together, all here to celebrate and have a good time.
And for one Egyptian, a chance to see a national monument.
To see the pyramids, and I didn't see the pyramids just 1 or 2 times.
While 2 Israelis just savored a special night out in what was once enemy territory.
I always want to be in Egypt. You know, Israel, we have 2 wars with Egypt. For me, it's like the fruit of peace to come here, to sit here with a big smile.
For a few brief hours here in the desert, Egypt was able to bring together a kaleidoscope of colors and cultures, a fitting way to begin a new millennium. Ben Wiedemann, CNN, Giza, Egypt.
The celebration of celebrations around the world, and our live coverage continues. One of the other concerns, of course, was the possibility of a Y2K disruption. So far, minimal, virtually non-existent, but of course you have people going back to work on Monday. We'll see what that brings.
Bernie, you know, there are just so many things that you and I have known for some time that we were going to be here tonight, and we both made it a point to collect little bits of information that might be interesting as we think back. We're not only observing the end of a millennium, we're observing the end of a century, and I just thought I'd share 2 or 3 predictions that didn't quite turn out. One was a man named Charles Dewell. He was the U.S. Commissioner of Patents in 1899, 100 years ago in a day. And he said at one point, everything that can be invented has been invented. He was a Commissioner of Patents. Nikita Khrushchev, we all remember this one. Whether you like it or not, history is on our side. We will bury you.
Yes.
And my favorite prediction from Daryl Zanuck, the film producer, in 1946, on the future of television, he said, people will soon get tired of staring at a plywood box every night.
Well, I don't think anyone is tired if you've been watching CNN around the world for the last 23, 24 hours, and our coverage will not end. We still have more time zones to go through as they get ready to go out to the Pacific. One thing about this Y2K, just to keep in perspective, as our coverage unfolds over coming days and coming weeks, as some people are indicating that there might be problems down the road. Talk about things that could go wrong. Teller machines, 1% to 2% of the 227,000 ATM machines in the United States are down or out of cash at any given moment. Railroads, just over 4 rail accidents a year on New Year's Day. And this one, things that go wrong with 911 systems. Public telephone network connections to 911 emergency centers fail somewhere in the United States nearly every week.
And we leave you, as we go to a break, with one other interesting thing that I think you need to remember, that it is 24,902 miles around the Earth at the center of the equator. So that's how far the Earth has had to turn in order for the world to get from 1999, all the world will have to have gotten from 1999 to the year 2000. We're not there yet. We've still got, what, Bernie, a little less than, what, 2.5 hours before Samoa, the last place in this 25-hour marathon, gets it. And we also found that if you're at the middle of the planet, the Earth travels at 1,038 miles an hour. We're going to get a quiz on this in just a minute.